upper right-hand corner of your screen, about 42 miles an hour, but he is on surface streets, and it appears to be some kind of a silver pickup truck, right, Susie?
Yeah, it looks like a pickup truck, and obviously it's tinted, so it's hard to see inside. Unclear how many people are inside that vehicle, but we do know that this is a stolen car, and that is the want and the original reason that the LA County Sheriff's Department started chasing this person. Again, we don't know how many people are inside this car, but the original want a stolen car, but they have been running from the Sheriff's Department and now the CHP.
And yes, we've been told that this started with the Sheriff's Department, now California Highway Patrol taking it over. It is going at pretty slow speeds right now, so it seems like they're just in that tail mode. Oh, now he's coming to a stop right now.
Yeah, it's unclear the reason why the LA County Sheriff's Department went into a following or a tracking mode, as we talk about, before the CHP picked this up. But oftentimes what will happen is because they're driving dangerously, or you know, putting the public in danger by driving so recklessly, that the agencies will actually back off and take off some of that pressure from that driver, so that they don't, you know, drive so fast. Exactly, which we have seen before happen. Right now, going down surface streets again, I mean, this is only 35 miles per hour. But it looks like a pretty quiet street here, and the CHP, if we can have our photographer in SkyCal pull out just a little bit, just to see if we can see any of the units behind this truck. It's been a little while since we've seen an actual unit, and it's like, yep, looks like the 3 units are behind that. And that's pretty normal for the CHP, but as you can see, they are on they are chasing this person down Rosemead right now, or I should say Slauson Avenue now.
Slauson Avenue and Passons Boulevard, I should say, in the city of Whittier. So we know that the California Highway Patrol taking a pretty relaxed approach to this right now. We can see that they're not in the high-speed chase or employing the spike strips that we typically see, but it seems like right now they're just kind of in a tracking or a following mode at this time.
Yeah, so, you know, oftentimes what we'll see is when they go into a tracking mode, they'll actually back off the ground units because of the pressure from the ground units, you know, that they could be putting on this person as a driver. But now the CHP, as you can see here, the CHP, they actually like to do chases as one package. So their chopper, their units on the ground, and their radio frequencies, they like to make that one package. So what they're probably doing right now is thinking of some kind of way to stop this person. But as you were referring to, Serene, a very difficult thing to do, especially with spike strips, when you got to throw those out, bring them back in, and also that officer has to hide so that they're out of plain sight, and not in danger. They can get hit by this person if they don't get out of the way. So that's difficult to do.
We've seen that happen, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And Susie, it appears right now that the vehicle is now on the 605 southbound freeway. So we started this bringing it to you. He was on surface streets, or I should say the driver. We don't know if this is a man or a woman driving this silver car, but the driver was on surface streets and is now on the 605 freeway.
That's right. And you know, we have no word exactly of where this car was stolen. All we know is that it started in the City of Industry. We don't know if the car was actually stolen from there, or perhaps the chase just started there because the LA County Sheriff's Department happened to get a hit on a stolen car, you know, when they looked up this car. But it looks like right now they're going, I mean, less than freeway speed, Serene.
Yes. And it does appear that this driver is driving obviously somewhat erratically, weaving in and out of lanes here on the 605 freeway. We've seen, are there hazards on right now? It seems that they're either turning their blinkers on or their hazards are on. But either way, not driving safely or cautiously.
And you wonder why they do something like that, because obviously it draws more attention to you when you throw your hazards on. Is it because they want other people to get out of the way quicker, or are they just taunting CHP officers? You know, hey, you know, here I am, come chase me. I've got my blinkers on even.
Right, and we do have retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley on the line for us right now. Sergeant, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Have you been watching this for a few minutes? Can you give us your take on it?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Susie and Serene. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. I saw that it went from local police department to, or sheriff's department to CHP. So at this point, it looks like CHP just has their units behind it and their air resources above it, and just doing a standard following for now. So it seems like the driver of the truck, either due to intoxication or unfamiliarity with the truck, they kind of keep swerving around and making different types of turning movements. But looks like they're on the 605 South and a little above the flow of traffic.
How often, if you will, Mr. O'Malley, just in terms of following a truck that is stolen, by two different agencies now, out of the City of Industry, going quite a ways, all the way to Norwalk now, is this a pretty common offense to be pursued for, or could there be more to this?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Stolen vehicle is a very common crime in LA County. So in this era that we are in now, a lot of police departments will let them go or try to follow it from the air. But CHP, they have their own different policies and procedures, and they like to stay with this kind of stuff and follow it all the way till the end, especially when it's going to stay on the freeway.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Sergeant, oftentimes we see just the airship continue to follow the vehicle and those ground units pull off so that they don't put anyone in the public in danger. Why does CHP have a different policy than some of the local sheriff's departments or police departments?
Their policies are in line. They just weigh some of the factors a little differently. If it was to get really erratic or really high speeds and where it was a danger to the public, or danger to the officers that are following it, and they have their air resources above, they may decide to also pull off or put some units at more of a distance. But in this case, the truck's going just above the speed limit or the speed limit, and not making too many erratic turns. So it's just a perfect situation for them to use their air resources and use their units on the ground. They probably have 2 units and a supervisor behind it, and then they'll just follow it till the end.
Well, let's talk about some of the stopping methods, Sergeant, if you will. We often see pit maneuvers and spike strips, but this is very dangerous to do, obviously, at this type of speed at 77 miles per hour on a freeway. What do you think they're talking about right now, the CHP?
More than likely, they're trying to set up some spike strips, up in front. But the hard part with spike strips is they have to be in the perfect lane. You can't put a spike strip all the way across the freeway. So if he was continuously in the fast lane or the slow lane, that would give them a better opportunity. But with a lot of cars around, it's also very hard. And then in terms of the pit maneuver, usually it can't be above 35 miles per hour. So if it gets down into that range, then that would be something that they would think about utilizing those tools also.
Yeah, I can't recall, Sergeant, often seeing the spike strip being employed on a freeway. I feel like that's usually employed on surface streets. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's mostly due to the speeds. So if the speeds got down to 35 and there was no vehicles that that were around it that it wouldn't endanger them, then they may utilize that technique also.
If you're just joining us here on KCAL News at 9, this is breaking news: a chase of a stolen truck by the CHP. The LA County Sheriff's Department initially trying to stop this person in the City of Industry, and that's when they fled that scene, and that's when the chase began. The CHP taking over just about 15 minutes ago or so, and this person has been on surface streets as well as the freeway, again starting in the City of Industry, and we've been through various areas, and now we are in Norwalk on the 605 southbound. We have retired Sergeant Patrick O'Malley joining us on the phone tonight to give us some insight. Mr. O'Malley, if you can just talk briefly about what the CHP is doing right now. You mentioned that you did notice the 3 units behind, and that's pretty typical of the CHP, the first unit there and then the 2 behind that.
Yeah, most departments utilize 2 officers, general patrol officers, or in this case, the highway patrol officers, and then a supervisor. So if there was information that led them to believe there was multiple people in the car or there was weapons involved or anything else, they could request more units. But in this case, it's pretty standard stolen truck, standard following. They have their 2 units and their supervisor and their air unit. and they'll just keep riding it out. They're probably going to start entering into some of the LA CHP jurisdictions. So then these units will hand off to their other jurisdiction, and then those units will take over. So once they get a little closer to LA.
And I do want to point out, you're seeing that speed just go through the roof. We just saw it go over 100 miles an hour. We were just saying, Sergeant, that this truck hadn't gone too much over the speed limit, was at the speed limit or just over the speed limit. We just saw the truck pick up a lot of speed. They were in the 90s, even over 100 at one point. And now it appears that they may be getting off the freeway. So a lot of really erratic behavior. What do you make of that?
I think that might have been just a bad reading from the helicopter. It didn't seem like it got that fast. But yeah, now he's getting off, and he keeps swerving like he doesn't have full control of the vehicle for whatever reason. So we'll see what happens now that they get on the side street. So they'll start to notify the surrounding agencies, probably the sheriff's department, and let them know that they're in the area. And if they need their assistance, then they'll be there to help.
And oftentimes what we'll see is, as Sergeant mentioned, the CHP taking pursuits as one package, meaning their airship, which is overhead right now, the CHP helicopter, and then ground units on the ground there and their communication lines. Because oftentimes what happens with different agencies, as we see this car go through a parking lot right now, an empty parking lot, thank goodness for that.
Weaving all over.
Weaving all over the place, is we'll see them, do this often and kind of come out of a plaza or so, trying to evade the CHP, but it looks like the CHP is following right behind them and getting out of this plaza now, which seems pretty big too.
Yes, we just saw a Michael's there, so we know that this is probably a large strip mall or some kind of a shopping center. So while it is late, it does appear that there are people out. There's a Lowe's. And we did see some people. There are a few cars in the parking lot, so rather empty, but there are people out. And it's always, I'm always curious what's going through the driver's mind at this point. They're in a parking lot. Do they think they're going to get away?
And, with the units right behind them, too, not just the airship overhead. We often see when, police departments are in a tracking mode, they'll often just, track it from the air with the airship. But in this case, we got, like I said, the CHP on the ground, in the air, and they're still not stopping. But they are stopping for the cars, though, thank goodness. Looks like they're taking some caution, making that left turn right there. But it looks like it was a green for them, at least.
Yes, because he did blow through, he or she blew through a couple stop signs and was having no regard for any safety or traffic signals. But now it appears that they did at least stop when they came to that intersection.
Sergeant O'Malley, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for being with us again tonight. Retired Sergeant Patrick O'Malley joining us over the phone once again. I want to talk about when this person was inside the parking lot. We thought that might be a good time for them to perhaps try something like a pit maneuver. Would that be a safe place to do so, assuming there's no one else around, people-wise?
Yeah, that would have been it would have been a perfect place for them to do it, but we just don't have all the information that they have, either. They may have other things planned up ahead. It's just hard to say. But yeah, that type of area, that type of speed, no vehicles around, no people around, that would have been a perfect opportunity. But, it just depends on if the main unit, the front unit is also, if they are pit certified and pit trained. Maybe the supervisor has not approved the pit maneuver technique to terminate this pursuit. So, the suspect is driving pretty much the speed limit, obeying a lot of the stop signs, and red lights. So that, for now, they probably just want to let this ride out and see, try not to aggravate him and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. Again, if you're just joining us here on KCAL News at 9, this is breaking news, a pursuit of a stolen truck by the CHP. The CHP has their helicopter and units on the ground, 3 units, first unit and two units behind that. And what they're doing with those units, that first unit, as we often know, is the fact that they will talk to the chopper, and the chopper is also telling them where to go just in case they may lose them on the ground. Oftentimes when pursuits are going so fast, the ground units, it's hard to keep up. And the airship will, give them the communication and tell them, hey, this is where they're going, this is where they're turning. But this has been a pretty slow speed pursuit compared to most that we see, Serene.
Yes, very slow. I will point out, though, that we have seen this driver flash their blinkers, put their hazard lights on, kind of weave in and out. So while they have been going pretty slow, and a lot of these we've seen are very fast, the driver does tend to have some very erratic moves. Yeah. And I can imagine that is quite alarming for some of the police officers following, especially as he made his way through that shopping center. There were a lot of cars in there and some people out shopping still. And now he's approaching another intersection here and just stopping. It's unclear why he's stopping because I don't see any cross traffic.
We've seen that, we've seen that actually a couple times throughout this pursuit. The person just stopping almost like just, right before an intersection. Unclear why they're doing that right now. Did they run out of gas?
And where are the ground units now?
That's a good question. We see the airship overhead. It just crossed SkyCal there. You can see it.
Yes.
But again, making that left turn and headed down Woodruff Avenue in the city of Lakewood.
Now, Sergeant, does it appear to you that those 3 ground units have backed off and are letting the airship take over into tracking mode?
Yeah, it appears that they have. So I'm not sure if they're going to terminate the pursuit or if they're just going to follow it from the air. It just depends on, they could be into another jurisdiction with different supervisors and different watch commanders. But it does look like the air unit's still overhead. So in this case, as long as he's driving how he's driving now, they're probably still in the area and just waiting for him to stop and try to take him into custody after that.
And just going down Long Beach here, or I'm sorry, this is Carson Street and Radnor Avenue and San Anselin Avenue in the Long Beach Lakewood area. And it looks like SkyCal is taking some time to adjust the shot here. But as we take you live through this chase here that we've been following for the good part of the 9 o'clock hour, one thing that we don't know is how many people are inside this car. Was this car stolen by force? Was it stolen from a parking lot? Were there multiple people who stole it? We still don't know. As we mentioned earlier, the we call it the pursuit tint right here at KCAL. Oftentimes, very often, Sergeant, as you know, the tint on these vehicles are so dark, it's so dark that you can't tell what's going on inside that car or how many people are in it, right?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell. And the way he's driving, says a lot. It's just either he does not have control, it's an older vehicle, it has bad steering, or it could be other factors, that there's other people in there that are, yelling at him or he's trying to get him to do different things, or he's just intoxicated or under the influence, and that could have been what started the whole thing, and they ran the plate and found out it was stolen.
Yeah, I did notice, Sergeant, there does appear to be a good amount of some kind of items in the back of the truck. Are you able to make out what any of those items are?
No, I saw those moving around also.
Yeah.
Could just be some old construction equipment or something along those lines.
Yeah, so this person has been driving, fairly at, street speeds, as we can see. He's about 44 miles per hour on surface streets right now. And we haven't really seen any real erratic driving. We've seen them, go through some red lights and also, go around some cars a little bit. But outside of that, they've been
Nothing
pretty
too
calm.
crazy.
Exactly. And as you can see here, we saw the last time they pulled up to an intersection, they actually made a complete stop. As we have some trouble with our picture from SkyCal, we'll bring that to you in just a second. But actually, right before they came to that intersection, we brought that picture back to you live now. They would stop and just sit there as if they're going to get out of the car or maybe surrender.
Right.
But then after just a minute or two,
They keep going.
They keep going. And we've seen that before, too.
Yes.
And oftentimes when we see that, it's taunting the officers who are behind this person.
Yeah, but it does appear at this point that they're just in tracking mode with the airship, because I don't know if you can hear us up there in SkyCal, but if you could pull out and maybe give us an idea of whether or not those those ground units, it doesn't appear that those ground units are there. So at this point, it appears the CHP is just continuing to follow this driver with the airship and keep an eye on him.
And so sometimes what they'll do is, while we think that the ground units are completely done and going back to headquarters right now, they're not. they're waiting for that radio communication from the helicopter that's in the air right now for the CHP to tell them, hey, this is where they're at. You know, this might be a strategy for them to take that, you know, ground pressure off of this driver and maybe, you know, have them drive slower or maybe pull over somewhere, and then the helicopter will find that location and communicate that to the ground units, and that's what, you know, they'll go pick them up. But right now, this looks like it's just being followed by the airship and a slow chase at that.
Yes. Now, Sergeant, at what point do they typically engage any ground units? I mean, at what point, Sergeant, would they decide, okay, this is a strategy now, he's in a good place where maybe we could take him down?
Well, at this point, based on how he's driving, they've probably made the decision just to follow from the air. Try to, you know, get to the point of where he thinks he might be free, get the idea that he thinks he can bail into a familiar area that, you know, he lives in or works in or something like that. And then they'll have the units that are either paralleling or just in the area, or they'll get a hold of Long Beach PD or Lakewood Sheriffs, one of the two, and then, you know, make them aware. And if he takes off into a residential area or whatever, they'll set up a perimeter and try to take him into custody that way.
Okay. And I am being told from our assignment desk here in the KCAL studios that the CHP air unit is still following this truck. However, they're having trouble with their spotlight at the current time. So that's why it appears to be a little darker. When we first brought you this chase, you could see kind of the circle, the spotlight that was following the truck and brightening it up and putting some pressure on it. So at this point, we're being told that the light is either not working or they're choosing not to use it.
And, you know, that could also be a way to let this person think, hey, maybe I got away.
Right.
No ground units, no night sun overhead, you know, nothing else except for the sound of the helicopter. I'm sure they hear that because it's right above them.
That's hard to miss.
Sure. But outside of that, you know, they're not seeing those ground units anymore. And maybe, like the sergeant said, you know, a good time to pull over and say, maybe I got away with it. And that's when the ground units show up. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But so far, we haven't seen any stopping methods used by the CHP in the way of a pit maneuver or spike strips. But they haven't really had the right opportunity to do so. You know, as the sergeant was saying, you know, we might see on TV and say, hey, they're going into an empty parking lot. They should just do the pit maneuver right now. Why are they not pitting this person and, you know, bringing this to an end? But, you know, as we know, the CHP, you know, it's a methodical process. They know what they're doing. And, you know, they're a little bit more of an aggressive agency than police departments. And when they want to get somebody, they will go in and do it. And right now, if they're having some troubles with their night sun, maybe that's what they're trying to fix, and maybe, you know, bringing those ground units later. But as of right now, it looks like this person is alone there on the ground.
And at this point, we know that the driver is on Del Amo Boulevard and Eastbrook Avenue. And we're in the Long Beach, Lakewood area. Again, if you're just joining us here on KCAL News, this pursuit started in the City of Industry. And we know that the LA Sheriff's Department was the agency that started this pursuit. The want or the call was a stolen vehicle, and then the chase was taken over by the California Highway Patrol. 3 units have been following this truck for most of the hour, along with the CHP airship. It appears that those ground units have backed off and are giving this truck a little bit of space.
Yeah, it's true. You know, the CHP, you know, again, you know, they don't relinquish pursuits. You know, when they take over, they want to follow it all the way through, as the sergeant was mentioning earlier, too. You know, again, they will stay on it, just switch areas or, you know, like, you know, different areas, like the sergeant was saying, you know, coming up from the Whittier area, they're going to be coming into the LA CHP jurisdiction. So the CHP, whichever division will take over, you know, if they come through that area. But right now, still in the area of Whittier, and that's where we've been for a good part of this pursuit. So Serene, you know, you were talking earlier about we never know what these people are thinking, and it would be so interesting to get in the minds of the people who are being chased to see what they are going to do next and what really their mindset is. Are they staying in this area because they're familiar with the area, because they perhaps live in this area? Sergeant, is that something that's often seen, you know, pursuit suspects returning to a familiar area?
Yeah, they do that often. It just depends on what their motives are in terms of getting away. They're calling their friends. They're trying to, get back to an area that their friends live in, or trying to get an area where their friends can pick them up. They think. Just sometimes you don't know what they're thinking, and sometimes they don't know what they're thinking themselves. They're just trying to ride out their time, and then eventually they run out of gas. But it's in this pursuit, it looks like the CHP's tactics are working so far. He's slowing down a lot. It looks like he's looking for different places to turn or different places to foot bail, but he just keeps, and he'll hit the gas again, but he's by himself. He thinks he's by himself. He'll see the light every once in a while from the helicopter. So that's exactly what they want. Get him to either run out of gas, slow down, jump out and bail, and then they'll come into the area and try to take him into custody that way, and everybody's safe.
Yeah, well, as you can see on the right side of your screen, this is from earlier when the CHP ground units were chasing this driver. They have since backed off their units and are now chasing just from the air. But as you can see, it's a little dark down there. Oftentimes when we see a pursuit, as Serene was saying, we see the night sun on the car in question, and it'll be lit up, and they'll know that they are being chased by the helicopter, especially because of the fact that it's so bright. But with no ground units there and no night sun overhead, as the sergeant was saying, maybe this is a tactic to get this person to pull over and think that maybe they're not being chased anymore.
And when you do see these two pictures side by side, you can see just how dark it is and how much light that night sun does bring to the chase, right? Because the picture that we're seeing from earlier, when they were being chased, you can see that spotlight right on the truck. They know they're being followed, and everything is very bright and illuminated. And in our live picture, the smaller one down here in City College area, it's dark and it's hard to see exactly what he's doing right now. But we know that this truck is still moving along now on surface streets in the City College area. He does go for a little bit, or he or she, and then stop, just like this, and then keep going again.
And it just makes you wonder why they're doing that. As the sergeant was, perhaps alluding to, was, is this person intoxicated? We don't know that. We don't know how many people are inside this truck. We don't know if they're armed. A lot of big questions tonight.
A lot of variables.
Yes, a lot of variables. And obviously that's what the CHP is taking into consideration right now, all those different factors. But again, when they just chase from the air like this with their airship, they do have ground units, about 2 blocks away or so, pretty close by, just to make sure that they are there, Johnny, on the spot when the helicopter radios in their exact location when the car does stop.
And Sergeant, it is kind of hard to see. Do you think that there is a chance that they would be turning the night sun off intentionally, or do you think they're really just having an issue with it at the current time?
It's hard to say. A lot of times when they pull the units off, they also, turn the spotlight off. They wait in nice dark area, make him feel that he's all alone, he's going to get away, and then the second he jumps out of the car, the spotlight comes back on. Or a lot of helicopters, they just won't use their spotlight at all, and they'll use their FLIR system so that no matter where they run, they can see exactly where they're going, and that the guy doesn't even sense that the helicopter's up there anymore.
So we don't want to give away too much, obviously, because we don't know if this person is listening to KCAL Live on, right now. But the CHP trying to lay down some spike strips. As we've been noticing sort of a pattern in the way they're traveling in the same area, not exactly in circles, but really, in the same area. They haven't really traveled far from this area of Whittier. Or Los Altos. We've been seeing Long Beach, Bellflower area.
Lakewood, yeah.
Exactly. So, they're looking into spike strips right now. But again, as we've been talking about, there's got to be an opportunity for that to take place, and it's got to be a good one. They got to know which way the suspect's traveling and for how long. Is it a pattern that they can actually lock down so that they know when they're going to be coming their way? They got to deploy a unit far ahead enough to get the spike strip out and then throw it across the area where the suspect can't veer around it. That's another factor. So many factors come into play, and obviously the CHP, they will do it even on the freeway, but we have seen that. But at these kinds of speeds, very difficult to do, obviously.
Right, yeah, he is going about the speed limit, has been going about the speed limit, And Sergeant, you were saying that we need to be around 30, 35 miles an hour to employ such a tactic. Is that right?
Yes, that's 35 or below is the per policy and law is the speed that it needs to be under. I saw that he lost him for a little bit, but it looks like he's back on the freeway now.
Yes, it appears that he's back on the, gosh, is he on the 405 now? It appears that he's now on the 405 freeway. So earlier you can see he was on the 605, and now it appears he's on the 405 freeway near Studebaker.
It looks like the ground chase is back on. We saw that the ground units backed off for a while there on the surface streets. Perhaps that was a technique to kind of slow this person down and have them stop there, but they did not. They kept going. They stopped ever so often, but only to keep going. This is where we are right now on the 405 freeway, as Serene just mentioned. And again, the ground unit is following very closely. Whoa, that was a crazy move right off the freeway. You know, we were talking about earlier how dangerous it can be for ground units to follow so closely. And that's one of the things, they won't follow that closely, Serene, like right on their tail because of that reason, because they can make a move that quickly on the freeway. I mean, that was something they were thinking, okay, I'm getting away because suddenly I'm going to make this move. But the CHP officer, it's like they knew that.
They knew that. They knew what to anticipate. I can only think back to some of my training or my days back in CBS in Sacramento. The CHP Academy is up there, and they train. We did so many stories with the CHP for pursuits, and they train and train and train and train. And the officer's safety is the utmost concern.
Absolutely.
So to your point earlier, Susie, when you were saying, you know, someone at home might be saying, okay, they're in a parking lot, go ahead and pit him, go ahead and take him down.
Yeah.
We don't know all the information, like the sergeant said. And also an officer has to wait until they feel it's the appropriate time.
That's right. That's right. And now we're going pretty fast, at a pretty good clip on the freeway now on the 605.
Almost 90.
Yeah, I think that's the fastest we've seen this person go, but maybe that's because the ground chase is back on and they're feeling that pressure from the ground units. But again, you know, spike strips, not something obviously they're going to try on the freeway right now unless, you know, they see some sort of pattern where the sergeant was saying if they're constantly driving on the right side of the freeway, you know, they can maybe get in ahead and try to get to that person. But at these speeds, and they're way on the left side right now, it doesn't look like that's going to be happening. But again, going at a pretty high rate of speed right now. This is the fastest we've seen this pursuit go, and the CHP ground units, again, on their tail.
Wow, yeah, they're definitely increasing the speed a little bit here in the 80s, when for most of this on the freeway, they've been, you know, speed limit 65 miles an hour. The speeds are definitely increasing here, and it appears, as we've been watching this, that the truck feels a little bit more pressure, increasing the speeds here a little bit, and that ground unit is on their tail. It does seem as if the spike strips, again, would have to be deployed on a surface street, because when he is on the freeway, there are just so many cars, and he is weaving in and out. So there's, if you pick a lane, chances are he's going to probably be able to avoid it or swerve by the time he gets to it.
It's true, and that makes it so difficult for law enforcement agencies. Again, we have retired Sergeant Patrick O'Malley joining us on the phone this evening. Thank you once again, Sergeant, for joining us for this pursuit. You've been with us for a good 50 minutes now, and
we appreciate it.
We appreciate it so much. You know, give us some insight into what's happening right now. We saw that crazy maneuver you know, off the freeway there by this car, and the CHP, they were right there behind that person, even with that maneuver.
Yeah, and you can see how the change in tactics, you know, the reason, you know, why departments do things like that. You saw CHP, you know, take it off the freeway and into city streets where it's much more dangerous. There's more, you know, cars and people and everything at the lights. They backed off, they took the light off of it, and they allowed him to slow down and drive around and make his own decisions at a nice leisurely pace. They get back on the freeway, and this is where CHP's has their training and where they like to follow these pursuits. And so they got back engaged, put the helicopter light back on it, and then here we are. So they'll take it, and if you notice, he's 605 north, he's going right back into the Whittier area or up where this all came from. So he just kind of did a big circle, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends back up in Industry or Whittier and up in that area.
It just makes you wonder, right? Again,
Yes.
it begs the question, does this person know this area? Are
Right.
they from this area? Do they have friends in this area that they can call and go hide at, you know? Who knows what their strategy is, but as the sergeant was mentioning, we haven't seen them go too far from this specific area.
No, we were on the 605 South, then he was on surface streets, then he was on the 405, and now back on the 605 northbound. So definitely kind of staying in a comfort zone.
It's true, and perhaps in a big circle, as we often see by pursuit suspects, because of the fact that they can comfortably go hide somewhere if they need to. You know, they can get away, get out of their car, ditch the vehicle, and go into a building that they're familiar with, or someone they know, and get away from the authorities. And maybe that's what they're trying to do. And it really begs the question, you know, when they were getting so close there, right?
Yeah, just a little too close for comfort.
Wow, this is the most dangerous driving that we've seen, I think, throughout this pursuit, Serene. At the speeds and the dangerous maneuvers, looks like this driver getting pretty desperate by the minute as the ground units have rejoined this now.
Yeah, and Sergeant, could you tell us what you think is going on in his head right now, going back and forth, north and south on the same freeway?
Yeah, and I mean, you can see that he just doesn't have a lot of control of the vehicle either. For whatever reason, it could be that it is the older vehicle, or it could be that he just doesn't know how to drive very well. But it seems like every time he tries to make those quick maneuvers, the truck's just all over the place. You know, it's the engine's in the front of these trucks, so they're really light in the back. So once you just don't have much control when you make those quick maneuvers. So, you know, CHP's right on their tail now, and it's been going for so long now, too. You wonder how much gas he has left.
That's another thing.
You know, he gets back into his area, which is going to be that Whittier industry area. You know, then we'll see what happens then.
As we know, these big trucks are gas guzzlers, and you know, we've been driving for a good part of an hour now. So, curious to see when this will, or how this will come to an end. And the CHP once again, the ground units rejoining this as they were in a tracking mode earlier, just with the airship overhead. But you saw, Serene, how fast those ground units joined the pursuit again. You know, and I'm sure that was just the quick communication from the, you know, airship that was overhead telling the units, hey, they're right there, so let's go. And that's what happened. We see that you know, them re-engaging. And right now, again, on the 605 northbound freeway right now, we've been in this area for the most part of this hour that we've been following this chase. You can see the CHP units behind them. We haven't seen any stopping methods. We did hear about some spike strips earlier, but after that, shortly after we heard about that, this person got right back on the freeway. And as you know, spike strips on the freeway, a very tricky thing to do and not often done because of the fact that they need the person to be in one lane, basically, not across all lanes of the freeway, which is happening right now.
Right. And we're still with retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley. As I watched that truck weave through two cars, and to Susie's point, probably some of the most desperate or dangerous driving that we've seen throughout this chase since we've been watching for the better part of the 9 o'clock hour. Sergeant, could you tell us what, if any, advice you would have for any other motorists who might be on the freeway? Because this is Los Angeles. We do have chases like this. Someone could find themselves in this situation. What should those other drivers be doing right now?
Well, the biggest thing for the drivers that are up ahead is just don't make any quick maneuvers, you know, once you see this coming, because if, you know, pull slowly to the right. But, you know, the problem is when this guy's trying.
Okay, looks like we have some difficulties with Sergeant O'Malley's audio there, but as you can see, this pursuit continues, and it looks like they are getting off the freeway now, off the 605, and it's curious to see where they'll go next. But if you're just joining us, we're coming up on the 10 o'clock hour here, and looks like back on the surface streets once again, in Norwalk, where we have been before. And as Sergeant Patrick O'Malley, who's a retired sergeant, is joining us on the phone, as he talks to us about, and he's been just discussing how the various methods of the CHP of what they can do right now to stop this chase. And when it's on surface streets, they have more options. As long as they're not putting the public in danger or there are no other cars around, they can do a pit maneuver and spin this car around and stop it. they can possibly spike strip this car, and you know, the size of a hole about the size of a straw, the air will start coming out of that tire very slowly, but it will impair that car eventually. But we haven't seen any of those methods so far. It's been pretty quiet or slow chase for the most part compared to other chases that we see. But right now on the freeway, we are picking up speeds, you know, going 90 plus miles. We did see that earlier again on the freeway, but on surface streets, this person was going so slow and sometimes just obeying everything. And we saw them run a few red lights in the city of Whittier near and Long Beach as well this evening. And they've been in this area for the most part. Again, joining us on the phone right now, retired Sergeant Patrick O'Malley joining us once again. Mr. O'Malley, they are on the freeway now, and the stopping methods, well, they are limited.
Yeah, as we saw, they went back into the Whittier area, and then now they're back on the 5 South. So, you know, the fuel has to be an issue, and now that the traffic seems to be a little bit lighter, you never know. You may see them start to try to utilize a spike strip, you know, something along those lines right now. But the units have pulled back just a little bit, so we'll see what happens, you know, once they start to hit a little bit more traffic.
All right, if you're just joining us here on KCAL News, this is an early edition of KCAL News at 10 alongside Chauncey Glover, SkyCal in the Sky, and I'm Susie Suh. We are on this chase now for about an hour now, and it started in the City of Industry, the LA County Sheriff's Department pulling over a driver of a stolen car, and that's where they fled from, and the CHP picking it up thereafter.
And Susie, I've been watching this from my desk in the newsroom, and is it me, or has this just been going up and down and up and down? Because at one point it was just very uneventful. The driver, we were calling it a slow speed chase. Then we saw this driver pick up speed. We saw CHP back up, and then I looked back up at the screen. I looked away, then back up. All of a sudden, CHP officers back on the ground, those ground units back tracking this car.
It's true.
This truck.
And, you know, we wondered, as I bring retired Sergeant Patrick O'Malley, who's joining us on the phone tonight, back into this conversation. Sergeant, you know, obviously they had some time there where they had the ground units, as Chauncey was just talking about, off this car. And actually, they were having some troubles with the night sun on the CHP airship. But I wonder, you know, was that a whole method on their part because of the fact that they just wanted this person to slow down a bit by, you know, taking off the pressure on the ground and maybe from the air too?
Yeah, I think it was. You saw what the tactics that they used actually worked. You know, they pulled the units off, they pulled the spotlight off, and then the vehicle slows down, stops for stoplights, thinks about pulling over and, you know, to the curb. And then just continues on, trying to probably get back to an area that they're familiar with. And then we saw that it went back towards the Whittier area and is now in that Whittier area again. But as Chauncey said, in California, this is what we call a very kind of slow, boring pursuit. So, you know, they just kind of ride it out, stay behind it, and then just hope he either runs out of gas or pulls over in an area he's familiar with and gets out of the vehicle.
And Sergeant, was this all based on how this suspect was driving? We only had really 2 dangerous and scary moments. We want to replay one of those. The first one happened at a shopping center. That was the first time we really saw it get dangerous because there were people around. If we can play that video from the shopping center when this pursuit was going through there. Do we have that video? Okay, they're trying to get us that video, but then we saw a crazy swerve in and out of traffic. Those were the only 2. This is that moment we were talking about. This is in that shopping plaza where people were around. It's the evening, people out shopping, a lot of cars in that area. And then another moment where this suspect was swerving in and out of traffic. Those were the only 2 moments where we saw it kind of get very dangerous. And we saw, as you see here, police got even closer to that suspect. So after, you know, everything sort of kind of slowed down. That decision to kind of back off, was it based on how this suspect was driving after these?
Yeah, it was, but it's also because, you know, he goes into a more congested commercial area. So they're weighing, the sergeants and the watch commanders that are behind all this and in the office are weighing all of these factors. So, you pull into an area that's a shopping center, an area that has more vehicles, more pedestrians, things like that. Then they're weighing all of those factors when they decide to pull off, and especially CHP, because their bread and butter is the freeways. So they wrote it out, they followed it from the air, and then once it got back on the freeway, you just don't have the pedestrians, you don't have the slow vehicles, you don't have the cross traffic, so that allows them just to follow at the speed that the vehicle's going and continue to weigh those liability factors, but trying to keep the suspects safe and all the surrounding vehicles safe and all the officers safe.
Sergeant O'Malley, how much goes into play when making a decision out there based on the circumstances of how this truck might have been stolen?
Well, the biggest factor is if it's just your everyday stolen vehicle, and especially in LA County, the DA pretty much files it as a misdemeanor these days. So they're weighing that also, that you're chasing a vehicle that could be just a misdemeanor filing versus a felony filing. So you get into if they're driving erratically, you start to bring in possible felony evasion. If the vehicle was taken by force with a handgun, things like that, then it's a carjacking. You can get into more serious felonies that may face felony charges. So they're weighing all of that, in terms of chasing the vehicle at all, or how, aggressively they chase these vehicles.
And, we were wondering, would they go that long chasing a stolen truck if that's the only offense that we're talking about here, Sergeant?
And that's how times have changed, in California. A lot of times some police departments, local police departments or smaller police departments, they will just make the determination that it's not worth chasing at all, and they'll just let it go. So that's CHP doesn't seem to do that very often. They'll use different tactics in terms of spike strips or pits or things like that. But when it becomes dangerous to the community, and they're weighing what the crime is, then that's their determination if they should continue to chase or just let it go.
Sergeant, I was just about to talk to that because I know in CHP, in my few months that I've covered chases here in LA, I know once they get on it, they get on it. What other factors, is at play here? Does, like tonight, it's a Friday night. More people are out Friday to dinner and events and stuff. How much of a factor does that play into how these officers respond and how they might not respond, or how they may hold back more than they normally would on a regular day?
Well, right now they're in a dream situation, in terms of chasing a vehicle.
Right. You
have very light traffic, a lot of areas for the vehicle and the officers to maneuver. The speeds aren't excessively high, so this is just a perfect situation for them to continue chasing. Yeah. And that's what's being weighed, every mile of this pursuit by the watch commanders that are watching it, and then the supervisor that's behind the units right now. If he was to get off on a side street again like he did before, then they make the determination just to put the helicopter up above and keep the units in the area.
Got you.
So it looks like we're headed down the 5 freeway right now, going southbound in Anaheim near Disneyland, as you can see, Disneyland Drive and Ball Road. And we've been following this chase since the 9 o'clock hour, and it all started with a stolen car. And it started in the city of Industry, worked its way over to Whittier and Lakewood, Long Beach area. And this is the furthest south that we've seen it in Anaheim. And if this person continues on this freeway, obviously we're going to be reaching South Orange County. But, it's curious to see where they are going. How much gas do they have? And at what point the CHP is going to be able to go in and use one of their stopping actual methods to stop this person? Or are they just going to be chasing this person all night until, they run out of gas? So, obviously we're talking about different methods, Sergeant, that, they can deploy, like a pit maneuver or spike strips. A difficult thing to do on the freeway, though. Tell us why.
Well, you just have so many lanes to go across. The spike strips pretty much cover one lane of traffic. So in order to, get that vehicle to run over the spike strips, you pretty much have to know which lane they've been traveling in for the the long duration, especially on the freeway. It's just very, very hard to do them on the freeway, especially when you have other vehicles around. So like now he's going from the fast lane to the slow lane, swerving back and forth. So it's pretty much impossible for them to utilize a spike strip. So right now it's just going to be a following, and they may try to get some units from some of the other divisions up ahead and attempt a spike strip if he can get into the lane that they're covering. But until then, it's a little bit too hard. So,
yeah. And of course, we cannot get into the mind of this suspect, but Susie, you pointed out just the span of this chase. We're talking about from Industry to Whittier to Long Beach to now Anaheim. Sergeant Malley, this suspect, we've seen suspects try to get close to home or try to get close to an area they're familiar with. But here we are. This is 4 different areas that we've seen tonight here, currently in Anaheim.
Yeah, he's all over the place, and twice he's made it back to the Whittier area. So it'll be interesting to see, once he gets down a little bit closer, maybe down by the 91 or the 22, I guess. Once he gets back towards the Long Beach area again, it'll be interesting to see if he ends up back up on the, 605 North or somewhere over there and in the Whittier area, because he just doesn't. It doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason to where he's going at this point, but he seems to always make it back over to that Whittier area each time.
Yeah, if they were to take the 22, that would put them right back in the area, as Sergeant was just talking about. And if you're just joining us here on KCAL News at 10, this is Breaking News alongside Chauncey Glover and Sergeant Patrick O'Malley, retired sergeant, on the phone. I'm Susie Sugg. Good evening to you. We've been following this chase for about a good portion of an hour now. And this all started in the city of Industry with the LA County Sheriff's Department chasing this person. We don't know how many people are inside this car. We don't know if it's just the driver or it's multiple people inside this car. Again, the windows are tinted, and at night especially difficult to see inside. We haven't been able to do so. We haven't seen any movement or any kind of, signs of anything from inside the car yet. Sometimes we see a cell phone light or, them gesturing out the window, but we haven't seen any of that behavior. So far, all we've been seeing is the CHP airship overhead. They've been over it the entire time. The ground units, they went into a sort of tracking mode, if you will, for about 15 minutes or so. And Sergeant O'Malley does believe that that might have been a tactic on the CHP's part to slow this person down, taking that pressure off from the ground units there, taking them, a little back, and then also the airship overhead no longer shining their night sun and showing that person that they're still there. So we do believe that that might have worked, but then again, that person got right back on the freeway and then started driving really fast at speeds that we hadn't really seen up until that point. So definitely the pressure was back on that person again, maybe feeling that sudden urge to, go faster because they know that those ground units were again in chase. But every single CHP officer is equipped with pit maneuver equipment on their car, and they are all pit certified. Not true with a lot of departments, with the smaller agencies, but we do know that the CHP does provide training for all of their officers to do a pit maneuver. But again, if we're on the freeway, Sergeant, this is not going to happen at these speeds.
No, the speeds are just too high. So, unless he was to hit some type of heavy traffic or, a construction zone that squeezed all the vehicles down into everybody was a little bit slower, then that might give him the opportunity. But, for now, it just looks like they're going to just keep this following going. He's just barely over the speed limit. The only thing they're concerned a little bit with is his control of the vehicle and going lane to lane. But they're up on his tail, and they'll just continue to follow until this is terminated.
And we've been following this for a little over an hour now, and it hasn't been a very eventful police pursuit. We've seen the suspect really at mostly low rates of speed, and we haven't seen but maybe 2 very dangerous sort of situations that were kind of iffy. But at what point, Sergeant Malley, do officers say, okay, let's just back off? Let's stop it here.
It would be that it's probably if he got off the freeway again, he got into some area, whatever, say Hollywood or somewhere, there's a lot of pedestrians, there's a lot of nightlife, a lot of people walking around, crossing the streets. Those are the kind of things that, really worry supervisors that are following this and making all the big decisions on this. But for, the way it is right now, it stays on the freeway, it stays at these speeds, then this is what you're going to see until the duration. He's just going to keep following. It looks like they might have just switched off to another CHP division when you saw the units that were off to the side. So now they take over and they have full gas tanks. Their adrenaline is down. It's just like starting a pursuit fresh. So this is why CHP does this the way they do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has anything to do with the circumstances surrounding how this truck was stolen, but is it me, or did you also see something maybe moving back and forth in the back of this truck, in the bed of the truck? There appears to be something back there.
Yeah, we saw that earlier. It's hard to say because you just don't know how long this person has had this stolen vehicle. Some of these people steal these trucks. They live in them for a while. They're partying in them all night. So it could be, some type of construction equipment related to the prior owner of the truck, or it could be some of the suspect's property. But it looked like just miscellaneous stuff that was rolling around back there.
Gotcha.
I want to draw your attention once again to that video that we have from earlier of the driver making that crazy maneuver off the freeway. It was just an exit off the freeway. We didn't think that they were going to exit, but boy, did they exit really quickly, probably thinking that the CHP unit would not be able to follow. But they were right behind this person when they made that crazy maneuver to the right. You see right here.
Right there.
And both of those units, as you can see in our shot, were right there to make that exit with that person. And they are trained just for that. They are trained to back off a little bit and not drive right on their tail so that they don't miss opportunities like that. Because you can imagine if they were going so fast right behind that person, they could also put themselves in danger too. So they're definitely driving a little back, but you can see how fast those CHP officers were able to also make that maneuver as they were exiting the freeway at one point during the chase in the 9 o'clock hour.
Right. And right now we are on a wider shot of this chase. That's because of the airspace there at the John Wayne Airport. And we're trying to get through this right now so we can give you a more up close and personal view that we've been giving you ever since this chase started more than an hour ago. But right now we are trying to figure out this situation with the airspace there at John Wayne Airport. But this suspect hasn't been too dangerous. We've seen him weave in and out of traffic only a few times. 2 close calls. One, or Susie, you were talking about when the suspect just suddenly gets off the freeway, but CHP right there behind him. The second one, the other one was there when he was inside the shopping center when he pulled into the parking lot. But the parking lot wasn't full. I was surprised that they did not use that opportunity to try to move in on that suspect. And he was driving, he or she was driving pretty slow in that parking lot.
Sergeant O'Malley, would you mind touching on that?
Yeah, the only thing that I saw was that, he had made the turns, a couple quick turns, and it's hard to get into position really quick as you're making the turns also. So I just don't think that they had enough time to get up to him to do the pit. Or, it's entirely possible, too, that they hadn't had the clearance from the supervisor to do the pit at that time. So that's just something that, based on the speeds and where the vehicle is, the supervisor will make the call, that they're clear to pit. So at that time, it just didn't fit into to what was going on.
And it looks like we're still going down the 5 freeway. Again, this is the furthest south that we've seen this person go, now entering into South Orange County at El Camino Real. We're past, Irvine now, and this person has been going down this stretch of road for the good part of the 10 o'clock hour now. And the CHP, as the sergeant was saying, they're able to change out divisions as, they go across the state of California. So this can go on, all the way straight down to the border if they wanted to. And, we're wondering at what point that this person is going to run out of gas, maybe. Obviously, big trucks like this, Chauncey, gas guzzlers,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen this person slow down. At one point, at some points, I should say, during the 9 o'clock hour, I don't know if they were taunting CHP officers or just randomly maybe thinking of stopping and then changing their minds, but they did stop multiple times on surface streets right before intersections just for, like a minute, and then they would keep going again, which we have seen during chases.
Right. Sergeant O'Malley, you said something interesting to me earlier about you never know these pursuit suspects if they've had the car for a few days. You talked about how they take them out and party. What have you been hearing? And I think one thing we've been seeing a lot of the license plate readers, and they get read and they get a ping that that car or truck is stolen. What do you see most here?
Well, in this case or in general, I mean, in this case, it's just really hard to say. But yeah, those tools, it's amazing how many stolen cars are picked up because so many cities have those readers now. So it's just a matter of time when these stolen vehicles and the license plates get entered into the system, that a local police department gets notified, and then this type of stuff happens when they try to make a traffic stop on them.
Yeah, and as you can see, it's pretty dark out here, too. Again, we are actually respecting the airspace of John Wayne Airport down in Orange County, and obviously, for that reason, we do have to keep a SkyCal pretty high up, and obviously our photographer in SkyCal is zooming in as much as possible, trying to keep this shot on this chase. But again, this chase has been going on for more than an hour now, and we are going to be covering some other news, but we will be following this and bring you the very latest just as soon as we get more information on a CHP chase of a stolen truck.
And Sergeant O'Malley, thank you so much for being with us and giving us your insight tonight. Thank you.